This meeting to order at 10 a.m. and we'll start with introductions. And first I'll let Quentin introduce his new assistant ag fieldman officially. I mean, some of us have met her many times, but this is the first ASB meeting, so.
With us.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, so Farrah Fisher is the Assistant Manager of Agriculture Operations. Joins us all the way from Peace River, from northern Sunrise County. I'll let her kind of give you a little background on herself, but Farrah joined us on March 4th.
Hi, everyone. I'm happy to be here in Stettler, closer to home. I'm from Consort, so I'm excited to be here and get stuff going for you guys. So, I have a degree in agriculture from the University of Saskatchewan, and then just after I finished that, I went to northern Sunrise County for 2 years, and then now I'm here, happy to be close to home.
That's great. Welcome. We're really happy to have you on board. And with that, we also have a guest with us today, so we'll go around and do introductions of staff and board.
Michelle Hoover, Legislative Assistant.
Ernie Gender, good morning.
Good morning.
Larry Clark.
Dave Grower. Justin Stevens, good morning.
Les Gilbert, Chair.
James Nyberg, Board Member.
Nikki Thorstensen, Communications.
Quentin Beaumont, Manager of Agriculture Operations.
Director of Municipal Services. I'm Brandon Leask. I was asked to give a presentation about Water Act and Drill. I'm with Alberta Environment.
We'll move on to the adoption of the agenda.
If there's no additions to the agenda, I'll give you a motion to adopt them. Oh,
I'd like to make one addition. The seed cleaning plan, I think it's probably prudent that we send a formal invitation inviting them.
that's right.
Okay, so that will be,
New business 9.1.
yes, 9.1, letter. Okay.
With that, Mr. Chairman, addition, and I see no other ones, I'll make that motion to adopt them as amended.
All those in favor? And carried. And we might as well do the minutes while we're at it. The February 28th, 2024 ASB meeting as distributed.
Read them and didn't see any issues on the meetings or the minutes as presented.
Okay, and I think Ernie, you caught one little typo.
It was just mentioned twice. So being that he's not here today, he's going to bill today and for.
No, it don't work that way.
Like what guys say, you stop at this, I'll stop twice at the next stop sign.
Yeah,
It was the amended ones.
with the amended, okay. Larry moved to move the minutes with the amendment. All those in favor? Carried. And being we have Brandon with us, we might as well start the presentation right away. And Brandon's with Alberta Environment and Protected Areas, and he'll be speaking on the Alberta Water Act regulations today. So, sure, just go ahead, Brandon.
Sure. Maybe a little more about myself. I'm a Senior Water Administration Engineer with Alberta Environment and Protected Areas. And Farrah asked me to come and present, as per the title, about the Water Act, rules and drought.
Ernie, what was
I'm just wondering, okay, as you're making your presentation, do we ask the questions as you're making them?
If you have questions, I'm comfortable answering them. And if I think I'm going to answer them in a future slide, then I'll let you know.
Thank you.
Okay, so the Water Act governs all water in the province. So the purpose of it is to support and promote conservation and management of water, including wise allocation of water use, while recognizing we need water for economic growth and prosperity. We need to conserve water for the environment. That's the gist of, of those bullets. And that's becoming ever more present as we head into the summer here. So under the Water Act, if you are altering the flow or level of a water body, if you're changing the direction or flow of water, causing erosion, or capable of causing an effect on the environment, you need an approval under the Water Act. Oh, sorry. Yeah. On top of an approval, you may require a license if you are diverting that water for a use. So a license authorizes the water source, the location of diversion, the volume, the rate and of that water diversion, and a priority date. Water in the province is managed on the basis of first in time, first in right, or FITFR. So that means that the older the water license you have, the higher priority you have, especially in the terms of a drought. There are exemptions to needing a license. The big one is household use. Household use does not need a water license. It is the highest priority in the management of water. Dugouts meeting certain conditions, and I'll go more into detail about this in a few slides, also do not require a license or approval for that matter, depending on what it is. There's an exemption under the Water Act for livestock that are watering from surface water for animals that are generally grazed. So if it's kind of open-ended in terms of the way it's written, but if the livestock are generally grazed, you can pump out of a creek or a wetland without needing an approval or license. And of course, firefighting is also exempt. So in terms of dugouts, so basically on the left side of this column, a dugout that is smaller than 2,500 cubic meters is not in a wetland, is not on the same parcel as an existing dugout, and is not restricted by an approved water management plan, does not need an approval or a license. So if you've ever heard of anybody talk about a PFRA sized dugout, it's really just a guy like me who came up with some dimensions of a dugout to get you under 2,500 cubic meters.
So do they make a distinction between a dugout and a slough?
Yes, dugout is constructed. The slough is a wetland, for lack of a better term.
I've seen sloughs at the dugout.
Yeah, and so
I don't know anybody that does.
that's a little more background about myself. I worked for Alberta Agriculture for 14 years as a water engineer, and where we ran into problems with dugouts is that where you want to build a dugout is where the water collects. But where the water collects is often a wetland. And under the Water Act, one of the pieces of legislation is the wetland policy. And if any of you have ever had any run-ins with the wetland policy, the gist of it is, if you are planning on doing an activity that is going to impact a wetland, first of all, avoid if you can. Second of all, if you can't avoid, mitigate. And lastly, if you are absolutely going to pave over that wetland or build a dugout or whatever, it needs an approval. That the way the wetland policy implementation is we'll tell you, go hire a consultant to delineate that wetland, to value it, and then pay into a fund for wetland restoration agents to then replace that wetland somewhere else or enhance wetland somewhere else. So
when they replace it somewhere else, that's a dugout.
no, so the restoration agents are the approved restoration agents in the province are a couple of municipalities and Ducks Unlimited. And so
I know, I'm just, because when you say a constructed body of water, they have now constructed bodies of waters that now meet the body of water replacement of a sluice.
Fair enough. I believe I'm not totally delved into the wetland policy, but I believe there's requirements for plantings and other things beyond just a dugout. So yeah, if you're wanting to build a bigger dugout, I once heard when I was not with Alberta Environment that I'm in the business of approvals. And so over 2,500 cubic meters, you need an approval. Over 6,250 cubic meters in diversion or 12,500 in total size requires a license. We do issue those. It's not something we don't issue, but we take into consideration things like, is it in a basin that is closed or nearly closed? So that relates kind of to the bottom line, where if it's restricted by an approved water management plan. So the Red Deer is part of the South Sask River Basin, which has an approved water management plan. Currently, there is still water available in the Red Deer Basin, but we're not far out from actually closing the basin from new water licenses. The Battle River is in a similar position, that it's real close to its limit before we get into problems with maintaining water in the river.
But they don't have one yet set up, do they?
There's an approved plan, but we haven't hit the limit yet.
Because I didn't know if they approved their plan yet. Because there's only 3 out of 7, isn't there, something like that?
I believe it's approved.
Okay, I didn't think they had got there, but
Don't quote me on that, though.
Last thing. On diversion,
Yeah.
you say which water basin they come out of. We had an incident last summer, fall, towards the fall. A lake that's what went in my area before this, it's in Les's area now. But did anybody go out and look before a license or a approval is given to pump water out of a lake that basically is filled up with runoff that other neighbors all rely on for water?
Well, yeah, so the onus is on the applicant, is the gist of it.
You gotta change something here because the applicants don't apparently.
Well, so when an approval comes to me, one of the things that I would probably be asking for is a water supply assessment. Is the water actually there to be had?
Do you wanna go for a drive? We can go take a look and you can see where the water goes.
Can I ask what lake?
Shooting lake.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
And I don't find it humorous whatsoever. I've made a lot of calls on this. And range wars were started over water being pumped out of creeks and lakes. And hopefully our province is beyond that now, but there is a lot of very, very irritated people that rely on that lake and rely on it for fencing too. We've had animals cross, we've had many issues with it.
Yeah.
And it just appeared that nobody was granted and gave all that trust to the pretty people that are pumping.
I think there is an understanding that Shooting Lake, especially in our current situation, is off limits this year.
Well, that's appreciated, but the barn door is closed after all the horses ran out.
all the water ran out.
Yeah, all the water ran out and closed the doors, so that's. Okay. And I'm sorry I had to get that off my chest.
I understand.
Yeah.
That's not that, well, this year you'll probably hear more from me on it, because if we don't have any runoff, it's just gonna be a worse story down there.
I understand.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, so
Have you been out there to look at it?
I haven't.
Yeah, that shows the importance of it, so.
Who does do that? Like explain to us how it works.
Well, so in terms of licenses can be split into term licenses or temporary diversion licenses. And temporary diversion licenses are issued when you need to pump from that thing to fill that dugout or that dugout. And if as a department we think that it's available, then we issue the temporary diversion license. If we don't think it's eligible, then we don't issue it. And the other thing is that temporary diversion licenses are really easy to cancel. If we think it's doing anything negative to the environment, we can cancel.
So it's all done by phone or online, or do you guys actually physically go out and look? Like, could you have an inspector that goes out and looks?
We could. I mean,
That's not what I asked. I said, do you?
it's mostly done through modeling and
Fair enough.
things
Okay.
beyond my.
So now we know what we have to change, Mr. Clark.
Tester?
Is it 2 separate divisions, applications and approvals versus, say, any enforcement or complaints that come in? Is that?
Well, there's approvals and compliance. So, I mean, we work closely, obviously, with compliance, but they're working on a complaint-based system. So if there's an issue, they they're the ones that are going to go out and check it out. I'm on the front end of things where you submit for the thing you want to do, you haven't done yet.
Fair enough. And I suspected that was your answer. And I just wanted to clarify that we may be grilling the wrong department, the affiliated department a bit.
A question too on diversion of creeks.
Yeah.
Does a creek, when a CFO is gonna pump out the creek, is that creek supposed to be running?
It depends on the license.
But if the creek meanders through all pasture land and that's the only watering sources for pasture, they're pumping and it's flowing backwards on a Friday night. That's typically when all this stuff happens, is on the weekend when we can't get a hold of anybody.
Right. Well, there's an emergency line.
And that one was close to range.
Yeah, well, and so older licenses don't have the kinds of conditions in them that newer licenses do. So I don't even remember what it was before the Water Resources Act, but the Water Resources Act didn't have details as to timing, as to flows, as to expiries. They don't expire. Now, under the Water Act, since 2005, we've been putting in on-stream licenses, water conservation objectives. And an example of that is the Shirley McClellan Regional Water Commission license. It has in it water conservation objectives, meaning that it can't pump if we're not meeting the set out water conservation directives. And Shirley McClellan is not the only system that's like that. We're creating lists, quite frankly, right now of who all has water conservation objectives that we might have to call and tell to stop pumping. So that's a little bit about where we're at. Other streams have in-stream objectives, and that might be a smaller stream that says you can't pump unless there's however many cubic meters per second flowing past. So
is it possible though on those licenses or approvals that there is an actual phone number that somebody from our municipality, and it could be any of our positions, Joe or Andrew, or that if we have an issue like that, especially on a Friday night, that we can get a hold of a voice? Because I was trying to phone the environment number.
Yeah.
And I was getting, if it was out west and somebody was camping in out west, that would have been a wonderful.
Well, I know that the compliance staff has like a 24-hour line that people are on call for.
Yeah, and there was no answers. Yvette and I tried every avenue we could when that was going on. We couldn't get a hold of anybody. So, and
if that's the case, that was a failure of our department, because that line is supposed to be answered 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
So just a quick question about TDLs for the upcoming year, where we've got obviously some challenges. Yeah. Has the department made a decision on whether for sure TDLs will be restricted or not in the coming year?
No, I don't think so. I think they're assessed on as they come in, right? So when someone applies for a TDL, is their water available? But I think there's an understanding that certain water bodies are off limits or are going to be off limits. Like for example, if we're making a call for water conservation objectives, nobody out of that water body is going to get a TDL. Like if we're telling you you can't draw water off your term license, there's no way we're issuing a TDL. So I think that's obvious. I think there's going to be a lot more asks for TDLs. I think that if you're wanting to pump out of a wetland, we might say yes. So that's a thing. We think that wetlands can recover.
what about lakes? Is like when I say lake, shooting lake, but like a Buffalo Lake, a Gull Lake, these lakes that we're talking about stabilization on right now and how low our levels are. That's just communicated back through your group. You wouldn't give a license to pump out of, say, a Buffalo Lake. How low are we now?
We're about 2 feet down. Yeah.
From what it's supposed to be.
From when? Well, 2 feet down, it's based on their pumping threshold. So
From where they used to pump, but they don't pump anymore. So maybe that's a new norm, and it's 2 feet down, eh?
Pressure curb.
Well,
Lake lots are always tenuous, but I mean, the reality of the environment is it does this, right?
I would echo that. I'm not sure if this elevation is the new normal because the lake has been this low in 2002. In early 70s, it was this low. There's been, seems when you look at the charts, it's about a 20-year cycle where you hit these low
And
spots.
I can say, I cannot make it rain. That's not part of my job description.
I'm asking from a diversion because we're trying to figure out this whole thing on pumping in, but with Prussian carp, we're working with government bodies, right? They're trying filtering, they're trying all these other things. And then we would still have to draw to the Red Deer River in order to do that.
Right.
But to bring that level back up, but it is, if we're trying to maintain a level and somebody was pumping out of it, it's going to create a lot of issues for our municipality's office because we got a lot of people up there watching.
Well, I mean, and that goes back to the importance of a recreation over agriculture, right? I mean, if I've got a farm that abuts up to the lake and my cattle have been drinking out of there for a number of years, I get it. I mean,
I don't think they're going to complain about cows if it was pumped out.
but I mean, if you're pumping to offsite water, now does it become an issue, right? I don't,
Under the act, you should be able to pump.
Yeah.
100%.
To
But
generally grazed animals.
if you have a lake lot, though, you don't see that as the act. All you see is somebody's sucking the water out of front of my lakefront property.
We did sort of open it up under the IDP a little bit for this. So one of the requirements in our IDP is that you have to have a secondary water source if you're grazing land that butts up to the lake. And that secondary grazing source, to avoid them only going into the lake, could be pumping from the lake to a tank on that same pasture. And so we kind of have opened up Pandora's box a little bit on this front already. And it has some merit because, as we've discovered in our dugout seminar, if you can keep the cattle away from that wetland, that dugout, that lake, and get them to walk somewhere else, it does help the long-term quality of the lake. Not necessarily the level, but the quality.
Yeah. Okay, I guess I'll carry on.
A bit of a diversion, but it just had to get out of this guy here.
It's all good. Okay, so
We were talking water diversion, so.
water wells also need approvals under the Water Act. In this case, it's a license only. The water well drillers carry the approval to drill water wells. And so if you're drilling a well for anything other than household use, it needs a license. It must meet the construction standard in the Water Wells Directive. And so that, I mean, things that we look at are how is it sealed? How big is the production interval? You can only have, you can't have a multi-aquifer completion in a licensable well. You need to have an appropriate yield test. So if it's for a low volume license, we need a 2-hour drawdown test and a 2-hour recovery test. If you get over volumes of 3,650, then you're looking at bigger yield tests, 24 hours, 48 hours a week, depending on how much water you're looking to draw, to show that you're not impacting neighbors or prior licenses, household users, that sort of thing. So to assess that, you apply after the well is drilled, but before you're diverting water from it. So my advice is to ask your driller for a licensable water well, because that may not be their standard construction.
I got a question for you on that. When you put household there, we do have water off Shirley McCullen out in the area I live now.
Mhm.
But the wells there were very tough to get a well, but when you were drilling it for a house, they still would only draw from one zone. They weren't completing in multiple zones.
Okay.
So now reading this, if I'd have been that guy that had drilled 9 wells on my place, I'd have shot every spot that didn't have sand in it.
So two spots?
The one that I drilled to 650 feet there.
Oh, you had a few there, yeah.
A few more opportunities in there, but I mean, you didn't hit any zone that was adequate.
No, and I mean, I think that's something I realized, but I know there's a push within the department to change the directive, to limit it to one zone, even in household wells. So,
But they were always treated as licensable wells, even when it was just for your household, eh?
well, so if
Water driller.
So I guess this is where we run into a problem. Is when someone drills a household well and we say, I don't need to see it. And then they want to build a feedlot and they want to license that well, but it's not constructed to a licensable standard. You can't license it.
What about Erskine? We say that people can't, we've said to them that you can't get a license to drill another well, but if you're drilling a well in the hamlet for your house, it's really a non-licensable well.
Do you have a bylaw that prevents it?
No, so our research and advice and gone back and forth with the Red Deer office on this a little bit is that the Section 22 exemption for household licenses is not applicable when municipal water is available.
That is a,
But you probably could have an unlicensed well.
you could have one drilled and.
No, sorry, your inherent, when I say the license, sorry, your inherent, that exemption that you don't need a license for that well, you lose that right when municipal water is next door.
That's very clear.
Dave, go ahead.
It is.
I'll talk to that because I'm probably going to drill 2 wells. I got that thing and it tells you what you can do and the government pays 25%, blah, blah, blah. Anyhow, you can go ahead and drill that well and they don't want to, I phoned the guy, I said, do you want to look at where we're going to drill it for drainage? No. You drill it, you get a licensed guy to drill it. You got to have a cap on it. It has to have a pump in it. You can't have the pump house over the well. It has to be over by itself. So you put a pitless adapter on it. And if you have power there, that's great. And if you want to run it solar, that's fine too. He said, I don't want to see it until it's done. But if you have a licensed water driller, he said, oh, that's no problem then. So now,
Not every driller drills to a licensable standard as their standard practice. But
the guy I'm going to get has been drilling for 20 some years. And yeah, I thought they would want to know like where you're going to go into, do this, to do that. He said, no, I don't want to see it until you're done.
I used to work in that program. We asked for.
Is it, that's why you left?
It's showing the exact location. And then you're right. We want to see, like, to the point where I think, now I wasn't part of the SCAP development, but I think they're still asking for a picture showing the well, showing the casing sticking up 18 inches, that you've got a vermin-proof cap on it. Yeah.
As long as it has that and a licensed well driller that's licensed, it'd be good, right?
Well, you have to apply for the license too, though.
Yeah, I know I have to apply for it, but after the fact.
Yeah.
Okay. Another one is sloughs, and I want to pump them into my dugout so that they go dry, and I hay them every summer. And there's lots of people that are doing that. That's allowed without coming and seeing you guys?
Well, so again, if it's.
But if you're Ducks Unlimited, you got special permission? Okay, go ahead.
No, if it's in a wetland, you need an approval. You gotta go through the wetland policy and everything that.
Describe a wetland to me that don't hold water all year long.
So, in a general term, a wetland is somewhere where water may collect. It has water-bearing soils that have seen water for a long time. And it also usually has vegetation that likes water. So sedges, willows, things like that. If you've got that kind of vegetation, it's probably a wetland.
And I didn't dig my dugouts are not dug in a wetland.
Okay.
We dig them on the side of it.
Okay.
And how come my good neighbors, our Ducks Unlimited, just dug one last fall right beside me in a wetland? You guys approve that? Because if you do, I'm going to put one on mine.
So I'll get to a slide, but I mean.
I'll give you the legal land description after you get done here today.
Okay. Pass it on to our compliance team.
All right, we're done beating you up for now. We're done. We're good.
Hey, I'm not shooting the messenger here. I'm just saying that the messenger should take the message back.
For people that go through the process, we need to see a proof of land ownership or lease agreement. We need to see that you consider the volume based on length, width, depth. There's a calculator for that Alberta Agriculture maintains. We need to see the dugout on a dugout plan. And now we have a particular form, pathetic actually, but we need to see a north arrow, we need to see your signature, we need to see the volume, the land location. So basically, like, show us where you're wanting to put this dugout. You need to consider impact to the surrounding water bodies and surrounding landowners. So if you're going to impact a neighbor, if you're digging a dugout that's keeping your neighbor from getting his water, you need their consent for that.
If the water runs across your place
Yeah.
and you have to farm around it and everything else, you need your neighbor's consent to put a dugout in to collect the water.
Well, it's a function of being a good neighbor. It's about not impacting your neighbors.
I don't know if you've been out there lately, but there's a lot of corporate farms and stuff that really don't really care about neighbors.
How, Larry, would you ask a question? How far is that lake back to what it normal is?
Shooting, like I walked in 300 feet last November and went I was down after a couple weeks ago and there won't be any problem other than mud right now. So
My understanding was the birds are at risk this year.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so to apply under the Water Act now, we all do it through the Digital Regulatory Assurance System, or DRAS. And I know how much of a pain in the butt that is. To sign on to DRAS, you also need an Alberta.ca account. It used to be known as My Alberta Digital ID. Or if a company is, like a consultant is applying on your behalf, they need a My Alberta Digital ID for Business account to be able to apply. If you are struggling with applying, we are available to help walk you through an application. So make an appointment to see us or speak to us, and we're more than willing to help. Okay, so the Water Act is designed to manage water short situations in the first in time, first in right scenario. But it's really difficult to administer that principle, where we cut off the Shirley McClellan water line for some golf course that had an older license. So we're encouraging, and I know the county is aware, we're encouraging, conserving water and, doing all the things related to drought. I don't think I need to walk you through all that. But like I mentioned, know the conditions of your license. So if there's water conservation objectives or in-stream objectives in your license, you need to know that, and your license actually says you should be monitoring the flows running fast, and if they don't meet, then you shouldn't pump. Obviously, the Shirley McClelland has been involved in water sharing agreements, and those are where license holders that hold a lot of water are being asked to share with those who have less, so that everybody gets some water. My understanding is those memorandums of understanding are nearly signed and nearly announced, but that's still to come.
Today is the last meeting for reviewing changes to the final draft, and we expect the signature ready version quite shortly.
Right. So, you know, if you're struggling with water on your place, look at other options. You need to drill a well. Is there a water body you can pump out of where things are drying up in other places? And we are pointing everybody to, can you navigate to that?
Yeah, I'll get you.
Make sure it shows up on there. So you get it. Just go straight to the sure. Put on my own computer.
That number that came up, was that the one that somebody answers all the time, the 1-800 number?
Yeah.
That we just had a flash up.
That is the next slide. I misclicked there. All right. So it should be in the middle of it right now.
All right. So we're pushing everybody to this website, alberta.ca/drought.
Andrew, can you send us all a link for that?
Yep.
Please.
The link to this report already in our drought report from Quentin and I later on in the meeting too.
Okay, cool. So I think what I really wanted to show you was if you click on any of these links at the very bottom, this is the number that we want to direct people to. We'd rather people not go through the minister. That creates about 10 times as much work for us. Come to us, come to the peons. So on any of these, that's what it's pointing you to. And I thought I'd also show you oh, did I go to the app? To the app.
I think the link to the left of the one you clicked before may take you to the web. Oop, no, still under the river levels. And then the Alberta River Basin's web app.
Oh yeah, there we go. Thank you. Okay. So this is just rivers.alberta.ca. And just to give you an idea of the provincial scale of water shortage. Usually takes a second. Yeah, well, usually it'll show a map of the provincial scale of this. It's north, it's south, it's in the middle of the province, it's everywhere. So it's really a provincial problem. It's not, we've never quite seen anything like this befure. You see, you've got it
working great on my screen.
Yeah, okay.
Else for me, and I'll bring it up. Here. Yeah.
So yeah, that's the areas of concern is where we're seeing water shortages. I think weekly I'm seeing a presentation that talks about this river level being its lowest it's ever been, this river level being the lowest it's been. You know, there's pictures of the Old Man dam that has a trickle going through it, and the boat launches 50 feet up from the water. It's ridiculous.
You guys saw that those pictures in the presentation Alberta Environment and Toddy presented at CRNA.
Yeah, right.
I've seen them too. I sat on the Red River Users Group, and we just got approved to start a study on putting a dam on the river so that we can actually do irrigation off of it. Acadia Valley and special areas already are working on their irrigation thing. At the end of the day, I think that St. Mary's, it's the St. Mary's Reservoir and it's the Old Man River. And yeah, they're down to a trickle, but I cannot figure out why, like environment or whoever, why you would not close them down like you have a guy dies and you could take that, he didn't have anybody to take that allotment out of the river. Why would you let that back out? Another thing is, when the knew it was dry last year, why wouldn't they go with, 35% less allotment?
I think since last year, we've been asking people to use less water.
No, but install it into every license that you already have on there.
So you have to have the political push to be able to change licenses retroactive. And if you think whiskeys for drinking water, are fighting over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a contract.
Whiskey for drinking.
It's 100%.
Yeah,
And
some of those contracts are from like 1895, and some of them are the biggest licenses in the province.
not to change that contract.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a big push, 100%.
If you did them all, it wouldn't just be part of the game.
Bigger court case, that's all.
And they're already using some of the Red Deer River's water, right?
Who is?
South Saskatchewan.
I don't think the South Saskatchewan is using the Red Deer's water. There's a small diversion from the Western Irrigation District that empties into the Red Deer. And there's a small diversion out of the Red Deer that empties into the Battle. But it's, yeah. Interbasin transfers are not a common thing.
But the one that we're working on is going to be 6 times the size of Dixon Dam, so that will help the local area here, so where then we can have some irrigation too. And we haul barley to down south. If we want, they can haul potatoes down there too. There's no reason that we shouldn't be able to have allotment to use our own water.
I guess I have no comment to that.
You're the one to hear.
You're talking about the south reservoirs. I found it really interesting. We went down to an ASB convention in Lethbridge in, what was that, February? January. From the urban perspective, there was not one mention of any kind of conservation whatsoever. Even in your hotels, it just had the standard thing. If you want your towels washed every day, if you don't, please let them know.
Sure. I think we're asking municipalities to be cognizant and then put in place their own water use restrictions.
Mr. MacGyver did say, up in Edmonton or at RMA last week, that the city of Calgary was going to put on a water rationing so we expected to see brown lawns. So that's good. That leads.
I expect that across the province, really.
And Mr. Chair, if I could, I think part of this is our water is too cheap. Unfortunately, and I know that anybody that uses urban water is probably going, what the hell is he talking about?
Yeah, I'm kind of.
If you want to conserve it, well, we've had that experience where, what was it at the lake, $20 a cube? 23 bucks a cube. And we had an individual in here talking about how much it cost him to wash his boat and how much it cost him to flush his toilet. I'm personally thinking I would never spend that kind of money to wash my boat or flush my toilet. But until we get to that point where people feel the pinch, if the hotel was paying 23 bucks a cube, they would definitely.
Yeah.
It has to be financial, unfortunately. We can ask people all day long to conserve water, but at the end of the day, first world is pretty nice to flush your toilet and turn that tap on.
Andrew?
I would just put back to you, of course, not sitting as this body, but sitting as the council, that is fully a consideration that you would have to make. At certain tables, it has been discussed that, a tiered water above X cubes a month for a domestic user, you're gonna pay an increased rate. That's one of the tools you can use beyond just the standard education and restrictions that are more commonplace.
You have girls or boys?
Yeah,
What I'm talking about.
I know at our last council meeting, we discussed having ready advertising for voluntary conservation efforts? And what if we have to escalate this depending on conditions coming up this spring? So I don't mean to discount what Board Member Clark is saying about another municipality's conservation efforts, and they are definitely in a lot worse case than we are, and probably should have hopped on the bandwagon last year. But I don't want to get into a situation where those in glass houses are throwing stones. We need to be on the ready ourselves before we can expect it from everyone else.
All the hotels in the county of Stettler should
Yeah, my only comment is for increasing water rates off of supplied water. I'm all over that as long as we put meters on the wells of these people that have all the good wells in our county and charge them.
We're going down a rabbit hole now.
I got 2 wells.
Not responding to that one, but
I bought the land that we bought because it has good wells on it. We turned down 5 quarters because they had 2 gallons a minute. And it's not feasible to farm if you don't have water. And a show.
just going to add, when Quentin and I went to the drought workshop in Lethbridge, being it was in the south, there was a lot of focus. It was well attended. There was a lot of municipalities there, and there was a lot of focus on conservation of water. And there was a piece, like Andrew had mentioned, maybe once you use over a certain threshold, that there would be a greater charge. And there was numerous ways that they were looking at, to conserve water. So it is in everybody's mind down there for sure.
I don't think the Red Deer is immune to it either. Like things that we've been looking at are what is the lowest flow we can put through Dixon Dam to meet a similar flow for the city of Red Deer wastewater. Because if we can't do that, then it doesn't matter if the Shirley and McClellan can pump or not. The quality is not going to be at a level that you want to pump.
Are you saying the solution to pollution is dilution?
Absolutely. But we're looking at, because we've had trouble, like Dixon was, Glenford Lake was empty as of December this year, and it's never empty that early. And so had to dial back the flows coming out of it to try and fill it.
But yet our neighbors to the north, you went up to like Toefield, and they were having a hard time getting hay off the land because it was too wet. I mean, it's the life we live. I mean,
sure. I was dealing with Beaver County on a drainage thing.
Did that one up to Grove Rock.
yeah.
It never rains, but it pours.
And we had all the fires last year and then the flood right after. So.
Exactly.
Mother Nature has a very wicked sense of humor. Absolutely.
All right. So if you have a neighbor that you think is doing something they shouldn't be, call the number. We will look into it. And by we, I mean our compliance team will look into it.
Larry, there news.
I think you guys have asked lots of questions, but if you have more,
They had lots.
One more.
Okay.
Just on your comment about go to not the ministers, to your folks, please answer the phone and please do some response, because that's the frustrating part is when we don't get a response, we go to the ministers, we go to RMA.
Yep.
RMA, we make a lot bigger issue with the Alberta government over it. And a big part of that is the feeling of not being listened to. So even from our municipalities, like when somebody from a municipality calls, and when I say that, I mean staff, please have somebody at least pick a phone up and have that conversation and follow up on it. Because if it doesn't, then we keep getting requests from our public. The only other spot we can go to is the government, and then it's to relook at a complete organization.
So your compliance guys need.
That's your experience.
That isn't track record. I've been dealing with Alberta Environment on Water
Turn your mic on there, please.
For 35 years. to 40 years because I was the first chair of the Gadsby Water Co-op. Then we sold to the county of Stettler when I wasn't on county council. And I do understand the pieces, but I've seen so many frustrations of when you're trying, somebody with a distribution license trying to get a hold of people. It could be so frustrating when you had a question, whether it be boiled water or whatever. And it wasn't hard for them to phone you when they said you had to bring in a boiled water, but it was very difficult to get a response back. So you got to, that end's got, you know, and you're the messenger. It's not shooting you by any means. Please take that message back. It's that we need to be listened to. And that's like your co-ops, your water commissions, all of those things, but also your municipalities, because we're the ones that take the calls. Sure. Municipalities are the ones that take the complaints and because a lot of our residents try to phone Alberta Environment and they're very frustrated too. So,
don't actually have my phone number up here. I actually work out of the Edmonton office and
you are reside in Edmonton.
Sure, Park, but yeah. But if you call the number there, they will send it to me, and anything that I get, I respond. Okay. That's how I've always operated. I always respond.
I appreciate that.
You may not always get the answer you want, but I always respond.
I would say that both through the county of Stettler and Shirley McClellan, we have a very good relationship with the regulatory approvals team. It's compliance where we see challenges getting the resources out for boots on the ground.
Yeah, fair enough. And like for the water co-ops and things like that, our department has drinking water operations specialists that I was briefly for a while, and the job is to respond.
Yeah, and being the guy on the other end of the phone, it happened many times, especially weekends. That was, but whenever you're gonna have a problem, it's not gonna be on a Monday morning at 8 o'clock. It's gonna be on Friday at 4:30 is when they're.
Okay. Any other questions for Brandon? Ernie?
So a dugout is you're allowed what, 1,250 per quarter?
Effectively, yeah.
Okay. But like the only problem I see on some of these, like you may have the topography of where there might be, say, like a lower area where it's easier to collect water. And so like myself, like a lot of times I will not look at, say, like one dugout, but I'll look at, say, multiples of them, say, like half the size, so that you can utilize your pasture a lot better also.
Yeah.
So how do you take the volumes of those? Are you still only added and only to make 2,500, or can you go over it? Like,
well, so in terms of the size, if it's over 2,500 cubic meters, you need an approval. We give approvals. That's my job. If you have multiple dugouts on, you need an approval. But so I've got maybe required as per total volumes for licenses. So I came across a file that there was an existing dugout and they were building a large dugout on the same quarter. They needed not just the approval, but the license, because the total volume was greater than 12,500.
okay, so you can go up to that 12,500 per quarter then with multiple dugouts.
But well, if the water is available, like that's the gist of it is you need to hire the hydrologist that's going to tell you the water is available.
Okay, so what I would look at, excuse me, if you have smaller, you can utilize your pasture better.
Sure.
Okay, we'll just take, for instance, divide it into quarters. So 40 acres on each one, and have one each on there, say that 12 to 1,500 cubic meters. So that would be totally allowed within this one here then.
I mean, yeah, but there's other things to consider regarding dugouts. This is my old job, but you need to be able to consider the water quality for those animals too. So, especially in a drought where we're losing water through evaporation, things are heating up, you're getting weed and algae growth, you're getting other things happening. You're better off with a bigger volume of water to maintain water quality. So, and then if you can pump to your different pieces.
Just wanted to clarify something. When we say it's allowed, but only under approval, right? For the multiple.
Yeah. So
it's not that
it's not allowed.
Yeah.
You just have to jump through the hoops. You have to go through DRS and submit an application.
That was the question I was asking. Okay, so like you're only allowed up to 2,500. So if it's only up to 2,500 without a license, can you distribute in there, or can you go over that threshold having multiple?
If you go over the threshold, you need an approval.
And if you have more than one dugout, you need an approval.
And I'm not going to recommend that you build, what's half of 2,500? Like, you're not going to get the volume to maintain water quality.
But it's also one, like if you have to have cattle walk, say 3/4 of a mile, they are not going to utilize pasture in one area also. So you may take the line of making a smaller dugout to be able to utilize that pasture, even though the quality of water isn't there.
There's animal impacts to that.
It'd be producer's choice, but it's still, the greater the volume of water, the better the quality of the water.
But cattle are kind of lazy like humans, so they'll go to the feed.
And they die when they drink blue-green algae water. And
Yeah.
Like, it's
Sometimes it's just better to put two big dugouts on a quarter too, with approval, of course.
Sure.
Okay, was there any other questions for Brandon? I think
Just one more, please. Hot seat today, that's awesome.
And this, maybe you can't answer, but on wetlands, put a dugout beside a wetland to ensure when you have runoff into an area that does dry up in the summertime, and you have water there, that the geese and wildlife drink out of and everything utilizes it. Why, you're increasing how much surface water there is. Why is there even a question on if you're beside a slough? Right now, we've got farmers what worries me is we've got farmers working up sloughs and seeding crops to them, hitting them with fertilizer and everything else. And these are sloughs that have held water, it might be that 20-year cycle, but they're working the hell out of them right now. And to me, I have an old dam on my place. And last year, I don't think you could have fit another goose on it. Well, like in the fall.
Like in the migratory.
Sure. So the wetland policy doesn't, so my recommended dugout construction does not meet the definition of a wetland because it is too deep. And I need it deep to maintain water quality.
But still, they don't seem to care, the animals that are drinking it and stuff, they quite like that deep water that they're swimming in and everything else, so
But I mean, as you're probably aware, different shorebirds like different.
yeah. But
Yeah.
if
If you're not, like when you're working that up,
versus putting a dugout,
dugout beside it, I think there's more of an issue to the shorebirds when it's canola growing in it than when it's dry and you got a dugout for them to go to for water. That's just one man's opinion.
I guess. Okay, I think with that, Ernie.
So like on the high mark of a slough, you can dig from the high mark out away from the dugout or away from the slough in order to put a dugout.
Theoretically, if you're not impacting the dugout. And another impact to a dugout could be, to a wetland, pardon me. Another impact to a wetland could be taking the water that would end up in a wetland and it's no longer wet. So there's a consideration in terms of like our wetland policy folks would say that you're impacting the wetland by holding the water somewhere else.
Like what Larry was saying, okay, if this high wetland comes up to a certain point,
Sure.
it has flown up, fills a dugout, and then if it recedes back into, like you would never get it back out of the dugout.
Right.
So like that is perfectly normal. Or
I think that's what we see a lot more.
Typical practice now, yeah.
thank you.
That's what I used to recommend.
Okay, well, I don't see no more hands, so I think we'll wrap up this. And thank you very much, Brandon, for your presentation. It was very timely. And as you can see, there's a lot of passion for water.
Absolutely.
So,
I'm sorry I couldn't give you a satisfactory answer on everything.
but no, we definitely appreciate you coming out. And in-person meetings are really better than Zoom. So thank you for making the trip down to visit us today.
No problem.
Thanks, Brennan.
Brought my wife and kids down.
See you doing Stettler.
Donuts?
Yes, there is, eh?
Yeah.
Okay, now we'll move on to,
ASB members I used to sit on the Red Deer River Water Lines board with. Al, and he brought the donuts and.
I understand Yvette's brought those donuts before and it helps.
Thanks, Brandon.
Safe travels.
move on to 6.1, the ASB administration report on page 6. And Quentin, you take that.
Yeah, so as we mentioned earlier, March 4, Fair started with the county. March 6, we had an ASB webinar update. We have 6 of these updates kind of through the spring here, just giving us some ideas of what's coming, talking about weed surveillance programs, talking about the SCAP, where things are, that sort of thing. So just a few highlights from our March 6th meeting. 50% of agriculture exports are value-added products, and there is a large grant opportunity under the SCAP for that. Kind of a neat thing is we're only purchasing 2% less food from grocery stores, with around 7 to 11% household income being spent on food. Believe it or not, because prices keep going up. We've got a bit of an update from Chris Neeser. He's our provincial weed scientist out of Brooks. 11,500 kilometers of roadside inspections were conducted around the province last year. Kind of gave a bit of an update as far as each county, how much was inspected, what he's seeing. That's something we can add to the next meeting because it's kind of an interesting map. It's got its ups and downs, but it's pretty detailed. There were 75,731 weed surveillance and monitoring inspections completed last year, and just over 16,000 pest surveillance. So that would be your club root, Norway rat, wild boar. Then March 6th, we had a town hall regarding drought. We talked about low water reserves, 18 to 30% of dams, water sharing agreements, which you guys are aware of. Looking at 50 participating groups at this point, or I should say at that point. And the province is trying to create a drought emergency response plan to be released. Their timeline is hopefully in April. I guess a few other things, additional information, state of emergency under the Water Act can come in if the province does decide to go to a level 5 or a stage 5 drought. And they are concerned about groundwater reserves, but it's a lower risk than our rivers and water basins at this point, but it is there. And yeah, they're welcoming any suggestions or inputs to epa.drought@government.ab.ca. Also on March 6th, and we'll go into more of this in the next report, but we had our dugout workshop with Lynn Melvin and Clean Water Pro. We had 22 attendees. That was pretty good. They had an open portal, so you were able to, when you register, you could send in your questions with your pictures of your specific dugout or water source and get a little more direct answers or solutions. March 12th, we had our Finding Fairness in Farm Transition with Elaine Freeze. 77 registered, 70 of those showed up, so the hall was definitely packed for that. And last week, March 19th through 21, Bear and I attended the Alberta Invasive Species Conference. Very good conference, talked a lot about unity between BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Ontario, Montana, Idaho, on what we're all doing as far as invasive species, particularly around water invasives, the Don't Let It Loose program, and how our message is very much the same. So it really shouldn't matter where you come from. There's a really good chance you've heard of this program, and it shouldn't be new to you.
James, has a question?
No, you could keep going. I'll ask it at the end. It's, just put me in the queue.
No. It's noisy as well.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. March 26th, yesterday, was the deadline for the cooperative ag extension model. And April 2 is our other deadline we are working on for the Weed Control Act regulation review that is underway, or will be underway once this survey is closed. And I just attached some frequently asked questions regarding the cooperative agriculture extension survey.
Okay, James, you can go with your question.
So if I could, Quentin, the ASB webinar update. So was that just for you guys, or was it for members as well?
No, that's just for field and to get updates from our provincial supervisor and what each department we talk to, what's happening, so that we're up to speed on programs.
Would they ever do a webinar for, and here's where I'm at, it's the approximate 50% of Alberta agriculture reports or exports are value added. I'm just wondering, are they looking at value added to not only sell within our own province as well? I have a very keen interest in this because I know there's some grant money that was put out there, and I have a kind of a niche project that I'm kind of working on, some stuff for, it's pelletizing wool, and it would be a value-added product. So I have a national wool organization that I'm working with to try and see if we can do something. So
that is definitely something that would fall under the SCAP program. We've been really pushing hard on people to keep their environmental farm plan current, start an environmental farm plan, or get in the queue and sit down. Fair and I are actually, so Battle River Research Group currently does our environmental farm plans, but with the huge push of grant money available, Fair and I are also, I was a tech at one time. We're going to become techs again to help producers keep their farm plans current so that they can access this funding.
So where I'm at is I'm looking for information, and I've done a little bit of research. This is more industry-wide than just individually. As much as I would love to be that guy, there is a couple of people already in the process, but as a industry, I think it could be a possibility, and one of them would be working with the Battle River Research as well to see if to do some research behind this product. Just a thought. We'll follow up on it later. Thank you.
And I had a question on the, in your report from the Alberta Invasive Species Conference, the Dutch elm disease update. Do you recall what that update was?
The Dutch elm disease was, I actually have it right here in front of me, Cindy Worthy from City of Saskatoon talking about their findings and just kind of some good news stories, some bad news story of how they were dealing with Dutch elm in Saskatoon.
Okay, when I had an arborist to do some tree trimming at our place, and he told me Alberta doesn't have Dutch elm disease. So
we're really trying to keep it out, but you can't say we don't have it.
You do at the lake, don't you?
The same way we don't have rats.
yeah.
Who invited you to this meeting? No, you don't have it at the lake? No, it's not like Noy Rats.
There's not none, but it's pretty.
So their biggest struggle, and it happens in a lot of cities, they are trying to protect their elm trees. There is a pruning season.
Right.
And they're staying within that pruning season, but when block plan, whatever, has new construction, a lot of construction companies are doing something to protect the trunk of the tree. They're plywooding it in so we don't bump into it with machinery. However, they're impacting the roots, they're impacting the canopy by driving over the roots all the time with machinery and knocking off branches. And when the bark gets broke open in the right season, it can be susceptible, right? So that was what they were talking about lots, was how they're trying to further protect their
Yeah, it makes sense to stick with the program, I guess, and you don't want to invite problems. Okay. Cool. Okay. Is there any other questions for Quentin's report? Not. Could I ask for a mover, please? Larry? All in favor? Carried. Moving on to the 6.2, the workshop report, page 17.
Okay, so March 6th, we had our dugout workshop with Lynn Melvin, Community Hall, 22 people. Talked a lot about importance of dugout maintenance, balance, aeration. Offsite watering was kind of a big push. If you can keep the banks of your dugout in good condition, your water quality doesn't increase, but does not get damaged.
It was it was billed as a dugout workshop, but they spoke a lot on various other kinds of ponds and things and whatever. And there was some acreage owners there, so I suppose that was of some value to those type of people.
Yeah.
They covered a pretty wide spectrum.
So like I said, there was a portal. When you registered, this an email came back to you and you could enter in your pictures, your comments, your concerns, your questions, and she would tweak her presentation to include your stuff. So I guess kind of the big things that our attendees were interested in or concerned about was algae, duckweed, smelly water, and aquatic plants. Those were kind of the top 4 issues that our producers or the public was after. They talked a lot about riparian areas and the importance of and keeping them around to help keep your ecosystem in a good balance. Anything else, Farah? They kind of hit the highlights of it.
Yeah, I think we major points.
We did want to bring Brandon Leask in and talk a lot about the Alberta Water Act. Because our presenters were from Manitoba, there were a few things that they were suggesting that contravened the Water Act. So what's allowed in one province isn't always necessarily allowed in another. And then March 12, we had our Finding Fairness in Farm Transition with Elaine Fraze. So this was a really good conference, a seminar, not talking about how the best way to hand land down to your next in line, but more asking those awkward questions and getting things lined up. Did you think of, what about this? Did you ever consider? And you could really see the attendees were really starting to take some notes and have good questions. And a lot said they were going to go home and have those always awkward, never want to have conversations with their kids and find out who's interested, why you're interested, and how we're going to make sure that this is best kept for interest of me, my kids, and those that weren't getting land. So that was actually really good. She spoke a lot on the importance of building yourself and your business and trying to keep it as such instead of trying to make it fair and break up between everybody because that's what you think is fair. Yeah, I don't have the number in front of me. It wasn't cheap, but people wanted her to come back.
Yeah, there was 4, when I went through the reviews of the workshop, there was 4 people that wrote in all capital letters, bring Elaine back. So it was a powerful workshop, and like people were able to text into her and she responded to them on the fly. I thought it was super amazing. She was getting 15 texts at the same time and responding to them all like seamlessly, and it was very impressive to see how she managed the crowd and like the comfort she built just with that anonymous text building.
That was right, because a lot of people aren't comfortable asking a sort of a personal type question in front of an audience. So with a
They had their kids with them and didn't want to ask it. Right? So to be able to send something in and not know who it come from was perfect.
I get it. That would be awkward in front of the son or daughter that's getting cut out of the will to ask that question. No, this is important. We talked about range war started by lack of water. We've all heard and seen the stories about this sort of thing causing family feuds and splintering entire families. So if there is interest, I think this is a great one to do a repeat of.
I made it clear for my kids I have no money, so they have nothing to fight about, so it's perfect.
And the biggest thing is, like she said, is the communication piece. Have these frank discussions, and you always think that, well, is that awkward? Is it greedy? Is it to ask these questions? And no, it's not. It's information that families should know and should share, and you should never assume, well, one day this is all going to be mine, sort of thing, or whatever those things. And if the parents' intention and the children's intentions, they got them all figured out. For God's sakes, get it in a will. And that's the biggest thing. Everybody knows what they want to do, and everybody's in agreement to that, but the will doesn't say that. So that was her number one thing, is the first thing you do is get your will up to date, So, and the second thing she said to the man is go have an annual doctor's appointment, or you're going to need your will before you think you are, sort of thing. So yeah, but the big thing is, communication and put it in the will.
Two most personal things you'll talk to people about is money and kids. They say that all the time. If you're talking to somebody, and them are the two most personal things that people are talking about. So it's very, very poignant. Put the two together.
And she's a well-experienced speaker, and I think you could have had anybody else deliver it that was just maybe as knowledgeable, but it would not have been as received as well, because she was a farmer. She could give, and she'd had so much experience in this transition program. She could cite so many different examples that made, everybody could identify with. So, she was probably one of the best speakers I'd ever seen.
And there were 5 financial advisors that had registered to come to the workshop and sit, and they're willing to listen to whoever. There was 2 local ones, one from Camrose, and then those 2 guys, I don't think they were from Macomb, but I'm not sure where they were from. Anyways, it was good because she could defer to the financial advisors to get the other awkward questions going, right?
Dave, you had a question?
Well, I think it should be personally up to the person that, when you go to make out your will and I have made it out. And the ones that have interest in farming, like I know a couple of people, and the boys are like, both were put in the will, but maybe they should have just given the one guy the farm because he is a farmer and the other guy doesn't want to be a farmer. And in ours, whoever helps me, and they're already in my will, it's already done, it's already decided. So I don't know if you need to have a deal like that. Yeah, somebody's going to be disappointed, are they? Well, then it should have been there when we were doing the work, I guess, my theory.
Well, some of these farms, it's a big ball of wax, and they do need help figuring it out. So, but anyways, was there any more questions on these 2 reports?
Seeing that, Mr. Chairman, I'll give you a motion to receive for information.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? Carried. Moving on to 6.3, the ASB Alberta Drought Report on page 18.
So just a couple of highlights in here. Going through the drought workshop in Cochrane and Lethbridge, a lot of the messages were the same. A lot of the keynotes from the province were the same, but municipalities are going to have a large role in water management. To develop community-wide water shortage response plans is going to be a key thing for not only this year, but going forward, to making sure that we have checks and balances in place. You know, Red Deer River and the water basin for Red Deer River is in decent shape, really. We don't need it looking like the ones to the south, so let's try and keep a check and balance in place for it. They talked about current drought conditions, you know, that we're at a stage 4. They said it's not a promise we're going to stage 5, but expect an announcement, and they thought possibly June. We'll see. We need some moisture before then. At the time of the report, there were 51 water shortage advisories. I did see that there is still 51 shortage advisories. As of March 11, the Red Deer River Basin, the dam forecast is increased by 1% February, and the snow impact is average, so that's good news for us. We're okay. We're not like the south. And you see, got a few pictures in here. So St. Mary's Reservoir near Cardston. This is their boat launch dock. A long ways from the water. Old Man Reservoir near Pincher Creek. Quite low. And Zama Lake in northwest Alberta. Deer River near Nevis. So this is Content Bridge. It looks pretty well normal, and if I remember, I think that's what it even said on the. I sent you guys all a link to the app for your phone. You can go on and check it anytime.
So Cancun, Scottables have land down by the river on both sides of the Red Deer River. And their cattle are walking back and forth and going up around the river, and they've been dealing with cattle on the highway. And the river is so shallow that they're not having any issues.
And that's typically a low spot.
Yeah, tripping across the river. Yeah.
James and then Dave.
So I can't help but think about this on a regular basis. It's cyclical for sure. It's always going up and down. And I would really, I don't know what we can do to promote this, but I think we need to get it through to the powers that be well above our pay grade, that every time this goes, we get in a panic for off-site water storage or off-stream water storage. And then we'll go through 3 years of really heavy rains and really heavy snow. And then everybody goes, oh, we don't need to do anything about it. And it gets thrown to the back burner. And then we go into a case where we go into a drought and everybody's panicking again. And you're always, it just seems like you're tied to the car with a rubber band and you're just jumping back and forth. Is there something that we can do to, when we have ample amount of water, that's the time to plan for off-stream water instead of this damn rubber band we're on, and we just seem to, you know, that joke where the guy's running beside the car and he falls behind and then gets thrown ahead and falls behind. That's our water cycle. It just happens.
I think they're realizing that now, from what I've seen, especially when they're now looking at storage sites along the Red Deer River. In our
years ago though too,
yeah,
right?
they should have done it. I can remember the big flood of 2005.
Yeah.
When I was hoping that all the camp kitchens along the river would end up in Drumheller. But I mean, gallons and gallons of water went down that river to Saskatchewan, where they could have been put into some sort of holding pond. So if they actually go through with a holding pond, to me, that's the first step in righting this problem.
In 1981, they talked about putting a reservoir in just east of the Saskatchewan border in the Schuler country, and it was going to be a massive holding cell. And it's planned again, but they talked about it back in 81 or 83. They decided it's not a need, it's not an issue. But if you think about it, water and food are the two things you need to survive. And we've talked about it lots. When you have excess moisture and you got good growing conditions, you get extra feed. And what do? We all do it. We sell it because we can make money on it. What should we be doing with it? I preach it. I grew up in the Hoyan area. You need food to survive. You should have 1.5 to 2.5 years of feed on hand so that when you're in a drought, you're not buying $400 bales of feed for your cows. You can offset and you just keep feeding your oldest stock and you keep it all fresh. Water's no different.
Dave?
My cows in the last 10 years never ate a meal that was new. It's always a year old, 2 years old. But what I wanted to talk about was the Dixon Dam. The dam that they got to study, they already have the money for it. They already started on the, let's see if it's going to be the study on it to make sure that we put the dam in the right place. I brought that up 10 years ago, and there's still 2 people sitting on that board that laughed at me before. Now they don't laugh so much. At the end of the day, this here dam will hold roughly 6 times as much as the Dixon Dam. The Dixon Dam, when they shut it off and only let so much out, seems like a lot of water, but it's not a whole pile. 16 cubes is a 100-barrel tank truck right full to the roof per second. And really, but you dump it in a big basin like that, and it's like a trickle. My family in the last, what have we been up here, 36 years? I guess we moved to Stettler a while ago, a couple of days ago. You go down the river, and there's lots of places along there over the years, even when we're high water, there is lots of places that are flooding back out. There's still places you can walk across the river. And until we get the dam built, which I probably won't be around to see finished, but I'm sure pushing for it, and it'll hold that much water, and then put in some irrigation. The last meeting, well, that's been going on for quite a while. Katy Valley and Stettler are doing irrigation off the far end there. But I keep telling them, yeah, we can haul potatoes from here to Brooks if you want, that's fine. Or we'll haul, how much barley goes out of this country right now and goes south to the feedlots. That's great. But we can truck potatoes, we can truck anything, but if we had water here to put some irrigation on this land, like this sandy loam that we have, will do really well on it. Anyhow, that's about it for me.
To your point about why do we only care when it's an emergency, that's human nature. When someone has a basement flood, immediately after they're checking into sump pumps. If there's a fire in your area, well, oh no, maybe we should have looked into fire prevention. I don't know how to break that human aspect of preparing for the unknown in the future. And the topic of irrigation and damming the Red Deer River, that conversation goes back way further. So I've read articles from 1954 with the East Central Alberta irrigation. And at that point, they were planning the Ardley Dam on the Red Deer River. And ironically, all in, including the irrigation, the canals, the dam, everything, back at that point, the estimated cost was $25 million.
At a zero now?
You couldn't
You
couldn't do the engineering for that now. And it kind of shows to that planning preemptively instead of waiting till you absolutely need it right now. Well, we would have all been laughing if it would have got done for 25 million in the 50s.
Bernie? I don't know, okay, when they measure the water flow, they get Burnt Timber Creek, where is that one? And also say like Drumheller kind of know over this, but where's Burnt Timber Creek when they do the measurement at?
That's up by Red Deer, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
So I think it's closer to the city of Red Deer than, say, the Dixon Dam.
I think it's right by the county office.
Yeah, that seems to be that Burton Lake area.
I think the part that I'm getting at is, okay, like it's less flow there at 4.35 compared to down at Drumheller at 15.9.
Here's sewer, Stettler's sewer.
Oh, we're adding to it?
and tributaries. And actually,
Right, yeah, the tributaries are flowing so wildly.
it's not,
The City of Red Deer's intake and output, so.
For intake and output, the output is actually more than the
Hopefully
intake.
Red Willows, sir.
not Stettler or Red Willow, those all go to the Battle River.
Thing I would add it, okay, I'm not really sure, but is there a dam being built
That's all I need.
for St. John? The second one?
Oh, wow.
Like, I don't know, I'd hardly seen anything of it, but like right now they're saying that it's, right now the cost is $14 billion and they're still a couple of years away from it.
Which one's that?
Fort St. John.
It's one,
And Larry, you had,
Just, there was a picture of Zama Lake on there. And does anybody use that as a source of water? Because I had service rigs that work every winter on Zama Lake into all the spots where the wellheads were. I wouldn't, if there wasn't much water in it, it was a big flat area that was wet.
Pretty alkaline too, isn't it?
I have no idea.
I just saw that picture and unfortunately I've been there and I didn't think anybody drink that water, to be honest.
The integrity of that particular water source?
Muskeg.
Muskeg and alkaline, wouldn't there be a alkaline?
Wetland.
It's like a wetland, yes.
The land is wet, so it's a wetland.
any other further questions for the Alberta Drought Report?
Just a couple of more comments then on page 21.
Oh, sorry.
A few links there. The Alberta Drought Flood Protection Program, right? Condition reports. Click on those links. Follow it.
These are the links that you were looking for from Brandon.
Thank you.
One other comment, there has been a noticeable increase in the last 2 to 3 weeks at snowpack in the mountains, so I guess there's a glimmer of hope or silver lining that maybe we are not going to be quite as rough when we come to river flows as what we were expecting. We didn't see it amount to much on our fields, but maybe we'll have the flow in the rivers.
And southern Alberta got a lot more snow than we did, so hopefully that'll help. Larry?
But just one other comment too, is I hopefully whoever controls the dam levels has it figured out this year too. Because the one dam between Banff and Rocky, there's a dam there that it was dry very early in the year, but I guess what actually happened, no, it's not the Browse, it's it's called a lake, Marine Lake. But it's on the ice highway, but they drained it because of the big runoff that was expected and it never came. So that would be part of that south.
Oops. Tributary.
Somebody,
There's somebody in their office going, oops.
hopefully they don't do it again.
Dave?
A lot of that is management though, you know, if you just cut them back a little bit, they would have enough water and it's been mismanaged quite a bit. I just drives me nuts, that we do that. And now the irrigation guys, I know 3 of them, and in fall, after they got the crop up, you're gonna grow another crop? No, but we soak the ground so it has good moisture when we go to seed in the spring. Maybe wait.
In a normal year, that's probably not a bad process.
Well, yeah, well, they have been doing that, but what I'm saying is now they got lots of snow, that ground is gonna be wet to seed into anyhow, James. So maybe how much water would they save there?
I don't know, yeah, you're right, 100% management.
Management's a big thing down there, they don't have any.
Ernie wants to move this, doesn't he?
Okay. All in favor? Carried. Moving on to 6.4, the Stettler County Emergency Farm Plan on page 23.
Do you want to take this one?
No, she says no.
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 At the Fire Smart workshop coming up, we're wanting to roll out an emergency farm plan template that Clint had made, and just help get increased awareness on that and increased participation. Hopefully giving these people, we always tell everyone to make a plan and have a plan, but what does a plan look like? So this is the goal for that, to help have people prepared for some of the emergencies we're probably going to see in this upcoming season. So we're hoping to get some good uptake on that at the Fire Smart workshop and then advertise it on social media additionally.
Great. In a period of dryness like this, you might get a better uptake too, because people are realizing the dangers out there.
And it encompasses flood, fire, traffic collisions, disease outbreaks. It's a pretty comprehensive document, so it'll help people wrap their head around it maybe.
Great. So you're saying you're rolling it out at the Erskine workshop, and then what are the plans from there to promote it?
We'll have it in the social media and link it. It's already on the emergency preparedness section of the website, but we're going to get it onto the ag pages and then probably put it in the newsletter maybe. Got lots of hopes and dreams with it.
Yeah, right. Okay. Well, sounds good. Any other questions on the emergency farm plan? I think it's really important, and I'm glad to see it's up and ready to roll out. Justin?
I'll move that we receive the emergency farm plan for information. I'll move that we receive this for information.
All in favor? Carried. Board's request for information, none came in. Business arising from the minutes, was there anything anybody wanted there? No. Moving on to new business, 9.1, to the Stettler seed cleaning plant. Justin, you brought that forward?
Yeah, we've talked about this a couple times, but I'll make a motion that we send a formal invitation over to the seed cleaning plant to invite them as a delegation.
To the president of the board or the manager, or where's that? Or both, or?
I think both. I think would make sense.
Okay.
The chair now there is Lee Duchesne. He is the chair of city plant. I think you should probably send it to him.
Okay.
Would be a good idea.
I thought it was Dustin Houston.
Huh?
I thought you said it was Dustin Houston.
No. Dustin's just a fellow that works there. He is in charge of management, or he was just doing interviews just for this kid to get, no, it's not Dustin Houston.
So we have
Lee Duchesne.
sent a invitation. Well, I noticed that they're on as a delegation, council meeting.
At the next meeting, right?
We haven't did our agenda yet, but Yvette did talk to me on it, that would it be possible to put them on there? And we were talking about what we had for a load on the agenda, which
I realize that, but
it is legal.
he can't spare 15 minutes?
Yeah, no, we will try to fit it.
Good.
James?
Well, so this is the perfect example of why we need to have them here, because I had a member phone me and they were confused about the request. They thought we were coming to them. And then I said no. And then I asked about it and he told me that Dustin was the chair too. So there seems to be a lot of confusion around what's going on over there.
Well, we invited him at your request, Councillor Grover's request, and
My request, I want him to come here with his delegation and tell them what they want. To start out with, when we had the problem before, for the new year, I brought in the 3 months that they didn't have a meeting, and then they finally had them. Got our finance girl to look over them, and Getchell and Company give us a clean bill of health when they went over the books. So I thought we had dealt with it, but apparently a couple of the board members would like to come to the council. I have no problem with that.
That's not what I got. I got that they were a little confused because they thought this board member, who seems to be very active, asked me if we were coming to their meeting. So there's a lot of confusion around this. I think have we sent the letter already, Yvette?
we sent an email confirming Dustin's appearance at the delegation on the 10th of April.
Michelle?
person who contacted the delegation already and is lined up, Mr. Houston, he does plan on bringing another member of the seed cleaning plant. So I can phone him again and make a formal request if you have a specific member you want. But
Well, the chair, please bring.
I'm very,
Consult them by bringing.
Find out who the chair actually is and then bring them. Because, well, just a minute. Because Bob was chairing the meetings, but he can't chair the meetings if he's a man or if he's running the plant. And I told him that a long time ago. So I don't care which, I don't care who they decide amongst themselves to send, or I wouldn't be opposed to 2 or 3 of them coming. There's only 5 on the board.
Justin?
If we have confirmed that they're coming, I can rescind my motion. But I had 2 board members reach out to me indicating that when we invited them before, they had never heard about this request. And that's why I was trying to make a formal letter. If we have board members that have no idea that they were invited, then the communication lines were dropped somewhere. And as long as we have confirmation that they're coming, I'm happy. I can rescind my motion.
I don't think we should rescind the motion. I think we should still send the motion from and ask them to come, because I think it's important that
Oh, yeah, it is.
clarity around this, and that
Yvette and then Ernie.
So just wondering, what do you want prepared for this meeting? The last time that we thought that they were going to come, we went pulled right back to the incorporation, found out that they had been incorporated basically under the Ag Service Board. And what we were paying them, cash contributions we had made prior. We had met with Gitzel-Creechy, Justin at Gitzel-Creechy, found out what their concerns were, how they had gone to the board for 2 or 3 years, talking about what their concerns were. Krista and I both went through the financial statements and made notes of, what we thought needed to happen, but kind of to no avail. So we had this huge package ready. Is that what you want to talk to them about? Or you just want to bring them in and just, kind of, because we haven't seen them for a while?
I'll let Justin.
I can speak towards my goals to bringing them in. So anytime I get phone calls with concerns or questions, you don't want to react on third-hand information. You want to go right to the source and exactly what's going on. And where I think it probably makes sense for us to provide assistance, and take this with a grain of salt, it's based on rumor mill or assumptions. I think we could probably assist in setting up some structure for them and trying to empower them and train them on board structure, meeting minutes, some of those types of policies. Maybe there's been questions about bookkeeper, and they may or may not have went through several, and those along those lines. Is that something that we could provide some support for? Try and empower them and not.
What level of support, Justin?
Well,
Support, that to me, I could interpret that.
As dollars.
I don't think it would be out of bounds that if they do settle on a bookkeeper that's permanent, maybe we could provide someone like Krista to give some advice on how to set up, and I'm thinking like an afternoon training sort of thing. In order to pass an audit, I advise these things, et cetera, et cetera.
You could interpret support as, providing a service.
I think they bring value to our community. And our financial support is somewhat limited, but it comes with other fringe benefits. But the last thing I want to see is for them to fail or flounder. So if there's some advice consulting type role where we can take to help get them back on their feet, I think it would be prudent for us to provide that.
Ernie, then Dave.
They had, when we had the problem there before.
Ernie first, sorry. He's been waiting a long time.
Like on there, like are we looking at sending out an invite or CC everyone? I find everyone that is on the board that has a voting member should be invited into it.
There's only 5 of them.
At least made note, okay, where we're headed.
Yeah, I have no problem. I think the entire board should receive the invitation. Who they decide they want to bring is completely up to them. I'm not going to dictate that. They're their own group and they can make their own decisions.
Now, Dave?
We had, the accountant that, found the problem we had before, and now we have a clear audit. And the same one, when he suggested that they use, not to be named, but a reputable accountant in town here. And they decided not, she started there and then they decided to hire this one and then hired that one. I think they went through about 3, but I think we should go back to, the one that has a business in town and then she does the books for about half of Stettler. That would work way better because then you have some continuity. You actually have somebody that knows what they're doing. And yeah, I'd put the CC out there that all board members, if they could come, because there's different opinions rather than one or two that phone Mr.
100%.
and his friends with Mr. Yeah.
I think this conversation should be better had with the board of the seed cleaning plant than amongst ourselves. Larry?
I just am concerned, like 15, it was mentioned 15 minutes. This is going to be longer than a 15-minute conversation. And I do think it goes back to what Yvette talked about originally, that we have to do an introduction of where the county was with the seed cleaning plant, what the expectations are, and kind of an audit expectations. So, and if we're going, you know, we are a very small financial provider, but what else are our obligations to the seed cleaning plant? And I know one of them is inspections. So they have to understand, you know, that they need to work with us and they need to have audited books and they need to, and we can have that conversation with their board. I agree 100%, but I don't think we can cut it to 15 minutes.
So, Mr. Chairman, through to Larry, which will be setting up the agenda. And in all due respect to that board, I think that may be something when you are building it, to build it in the camera so that we can have that conversation. We can do the presentation, but to respect some confidential information that may or may not go back and forth. And I think they would probably be okay with that as well.
To Andrew, is that, can we do that in camera based on?
Like 100% protecting a third party's interest.
I'm asking.
Okay.
Of course, we always want as much in public as possible. That's the general goal, but if there are some more sensitive issues, including, you know, previous personnel evaluations, legal advice, things like that.
As long as, because names, something like that, names could come up, and we don't want that in the general public.
Probably a good idea.
Did you have something to add?
Well, just looking for direction, like when we worked with them before on the legal, I mean, they flat out ignored legal advice that our attorney gave them. Also, as a request from Gitzel Creechy, Justin came to me and asked me to take over the books for the sea cleaning plant and, you know, provide the support that we would provide for Stettler Ambulance or Stettler Waste. And I flat out said, no, I don't have the staff and don't have the time. And, you know, we go pretty hard here. And I don't think that that would be something that, unless I get firm direction from council that that's the direction you want to go. I've got 4 or 5 other entities sitting in the lineup outside that would kill for us to move in and tell them how to do things and take over their books. And I don't want to. Yeah, I don't want to go there. I don't want to open that door. I've been, you know, pretty hard, but you know, we'll give you recommendations, which Chris and I did. We wrote up recommendations, and you know, basically how to run a meeting and all this kind of stuff. We got them legal advice when they were in trouble before. They didn't follow it. They were close, but they didn't follow it, which frustrated our attorney also. And we were able to get them, you know, reduce legal costs. That's almost a joke, but because of our relationship with the attorney, right? So, I mean, they either need to be independent or they need to figure out what their direction is. But I need to know what level of information council is expecting from us.
But I think if I could, Mr. Chair, all the level of information we're getting back from, I think that's kind of where we've had a little bit of issue going forward. So I think we can deal with it.
So just to expand on my intent currently is fact finding. And I don't believe that we're in a position, unless something were to drastically change, to step in and take control, nor do I want to seek that direction. I just want to empower them and give them the tools they need to operate on their own. And further to that point, the implication that we should choose who their bookkeeper is. I don't want to go down that road. I want to discuss, if we're going to discuss that topic, qualifications and expectations for the job that they do. This is how we would generally set it up. But I am not in the business of telling another board who they should or shouldn't hire. That's stepping outside the lines.
You had something, Dad?
It was actually Getzel and Crucci that suggested to use that person. And they chose not to use that person and use a friend of a friend of a friend. And now they're in trouble.
Well, I think this conversation is best had with the board, and I think it's all, like Justin says, kind of be a fact finding meeting so that we totally understand the situation, and they, maybe we can give them some suggestions of how to better run a board. Larry?
As chair of the meeting that they're going to be coming to, though, I want, like, our administration's asking for clarification too. And one thing I do think they've got that package together. We can lay the package to them to take back to, to discuss as a board, or for each board member to take and then read up on, and they can discuss if they have further questions, come back. But I really wonder, as a board, do they understand what an audit is?
Well, they don't have audits. They have notification of readers.
Notification reader, it's still the first form of audit though, Vet.
Right, and they would never get a clean audit based on their structure, right? I mean, there would be so many flags raised that they would never get a clean audit.
So just, I think as much as that is if we can discuss what their level of audit is, so that the people sitting on that board do understand what their expectations are too. And as a board member. Yeah.
I agree with Larry that we'll have to slot an appropriate amount of time.
Well, I'll work with.
Because, in-person delegations, back and forth conversation does take a while.
We'll try to, but are you suggesting we went down a couple rabbit holes with our last
I am.
Is it a committee of a whole meeting that should this be go to, or should we stay with it in camera? I didn't.
We did it for council, but it.
With all due respect, like, that was a huge package we put together before. I mean, we were digging, Elizabeth was on her hands and knees in the vault, and I think Sharon was with her. And Quentin was pulling everything out of everything he could find, and I don't know if it's enough time for the April meeting.
Do we not still have that package?
Well, we've got a lot of it, but you're gonna want to put it in a package that, number one's not going to, somebody's gonna look at it and go, oh my God, I'm not even gonna look at that. It's too complicated.
So do we need another month?
That's what I'm wondering, like, because we have a lot of meetings coming up. We have a lot of issues with some of the other entities that we're looking after right now that we're pushing. I just had an hour meeting with Danette. And, we're busy. I'm sorry. I am sorry. But we are flying here.
Do we offer up the next Ag Service Board meeting? I know it's only a 2-hour time slot, but we could cut everything out and just have a seed plan.
Maybe
If I might, it might be better to swing a committee of the whole.
The only thing that I think is the Ag Service Board may or may not have the voting ability to do what we may.
On Quentin's suggestion there, though, you could cancel the ASB meeting and schedule a special meeting.
Special council meeting.
Council meeting.
Yeah.
That's,
And if you needed further time or designated council, you're only 2 weeks from your next council.
I like the idea of canceling the Ag Service Board meeting, turning it into a council meeting, because I think that needs to be held, that conversation with the Ag Service or with the seed cleaning plate needs to be held with council, not with.
and there was a concern originally about having County of Stettler tied to it.
Mhm.
So I do think this is going to take some time to have this conversation and to ensure that the level of trust is there, that from all partners.
Mhm. Everybody understands where everybody's at. I agree. So, Mr. Chairman, I think should we leave this in administration's hand to find us a time slot or?
Do, and is that, and they have to also make a decision if they have enough time to gather data by the next.
Yeah. I don't think this is a pressing that doesn't have to be done tomorrow. So if we postponed it, but we need to communicate that with the Ag Service or the seed cleaning plant and I'll go forward.
The original agreement that we found, that we pulled, was huge, and it's not the easiest to read because it's faded, and I think we found it in a book of minutes, and, you want to you probably don't want to put the whole agreement in, but you want to take some excerpts out of it that makes sense, and then, of course, there's the taxing of it, the inspections, we had Justin pull back a pile of audited financial statements that we got permission from the board at that time to get access to those so we could try to put them into perspective.
And if we have that date on it, Yvette, I don't think there's an issue to discuss to that date. Like, and we can talk to them and we had the permission, this is the date, this is what the auditor's findings or the accounting firm, and this is what our specialists at the county had went through, so that you're not trying to catch up for right till now. Because the issue that was presented to us,
It hasn't gone away.
Yeah, it really hasn't.
Yeah. It's just, I apologize, but I mean, we're in Edmonton tomorrow. We've got to deal with Stettler ambulance today. We've got audited financial statements coming.
Just tell us.
tell us, and then we have to twist if it's not an acceptable time.
Okay, Justin?
Earlier, it was said that they had accepted an invitation. When was that date?
Just they accepted our notification that Councillor Grover asked that we put them on the agenda. And so I understood, I'm sorry, from you that it was Dustin Houston that was the chair. So we reached out to him and Michelle set up a time for him to appear.
I think that is another notification.
I'm not opposed to bringing them at a more scaled down version on the day that they accept it. And the reason being, we're looking at this silver bullet that we need to find a time slot where we have time to prep, we can solve all the world's problems, and then away we go. We're making some assumptions that they want our help. So I'm comfortable leaving that invitation stand on the meeting, even if it's at a scaled down version and we can't get through all this, because right now we're making assumptions that they want our help.
Well,
I believe they do.
And I'm good with that, but then we'll just provide a memo for council with some key dates, maybe, like they were incorporated, there's an agreement, their tax status with the town of Stettler, I think is a real important one. And then the next one, maybe they want us to get deeper into.
And then we can get some feedback where we'll have a little bit more information where we think we could provide assistance or not. And we'll get some feedback from them on whether or not they want our assistance.
We can handle that. It's just, I wanted to know what you expected of us, because if you want us to dive in like we did before, we got to pull that old report and make it comprehensible.
We must still have that in the.
We do, but it wasn't in the best, because
It's in our good reader, isn't it, under one of the packages?
it might be.
Maybe. But I think we'd
We
more
just have to find it again.
we'd more specifically want to speak to what your options are now. I mean, those things were largely focused on the specific context of the issue they were having then. But just as far as, what tools does council have? What are the impacts to the county? Those types of things. That's where we would want to limit at least the memo to, is just like the governance side and how it affects us and how what we do affects them.
I think in there, we also had a breakdown of how much funding that we had given the Stettler Sea Cleaning plants, which is a good reference for council also. Yeah.
Okay, Dave?
Thank you. They're all farmers, and I think what I would like to see before they start working in the field and stuff, just get it done with, get it straightened out, get it moving on, get the books. I didn't suggest that we did the books. I just suggested that they get somebody capable to do the books and get stuff so it's straightened out and the way it goes.
It's not a 15,
The better.
it's not a 15-minute conversation. Our staff does not have the time to prepare for it by next council meeting. So this will be the first meeting that could result in more meetings, Dave. It took a long time to get to this point. So it's going to take a while to make sure that we have our package together.
Yeah, whatever, as long as you get straightened out.
Then we'll just leave it.
Then we have, oh, Ernie?
When Dave was just saying, okay, a lot of these board members are gonna be farmers, they're right around the corner of being in the field, they've got an awful lot of decisions, and so we've got to make sure that we coincide with what they are available also. And like this part of where then you start saying, okay, we're gonna get someone in the audit, a friend of a friend of a friend, bullshit on the friends. You get someone that is totally independent of yourself in order to represent yourself.
Okay, so I think we got a motion on the floor by Justin to have a meeting with council and initial meeting, and then to see what future meetings are needed from there. But all in favor of that motion?
You're okay with that motion?
Something that he said? Or you can make it.
Yeah. Technically, Mr. Steve, for it to be, you would have to formally adopt a amendment. His motion currently says that the board directs administration to send a formal invitation to the board of the Stettler County Stettler Seed Cleaning Plant to send a delegation to the upcoming meeting.
That's what we got.
Council, not ASB, as long as you get council in there. Yeah,
Well, I think it should be a council, not ag service.
that's his intention, yeah. Okay,
Isn't any real
with that? Okay. And carried.
Just to make sure we're on.
Yeah. Moving on to correspondence. Is there anything from correspondence anybody would like pulled out for further discussion? Not, I'd ask for a mover to be accepted for information. Larry? Okay, all in favor? And carried. Finance, year-to-date verbal report. Oh, finance is going, button.
Early in the year, no excitement.
Vera didn't, change all the,
She tried, but I hit, I'm just kidding.
Okay, so there's really nothing to report on the financial part. Okay. Someone accept that information on James. Thank you. All in favor? Carried.
doesn't look this way. He's
Yeah, no, there's too many more on
he's
the
pretty
other.
left leaning if you guys know him. Ooh. Fire.
To 12.1, the multi-year drought workshop that Quentin and I had attended in Lethbridge on February 29th. Drought similarities everywhere, or drought has similarities everywhere, but southern Alberta has some unique issues. Their reservoirs, as you know, are crucially low, and evaporation is a big concern for them with the hot winds that prevail there. So they're looking at all options, even like floating devices or covers that are options being used in California. And even in southern Alberta, something we don't consider, even their landscaping all requires irrigation. So now they're doing zero-scape landscaping workshops, which offer drought-resisting plants and native plant gardens and other options. And then, of course, the water sharing and water rationing were all considered. The MD of Pincher Creek hauled over $1 million worth of water to their municipality when their reservoir got too low to pump. And lots of information resources were shared. The Alberta Rivers website gives up-to-date info on current river flows and reservoir capacities, so that can be accessed by anybody and with the updates. On February 29th, the flow of the Red Deer River near Drumheller was the second lowest on record, and the Battle River at Pinoka was the lowest on record. The Dixon Dam on the Red Deer River was near normal, and the St. Mary's Reservoir was 12% of normal. And abwater.ca is another information resource. Late season water deficits are common everywhere, and contingency plans are necessary, and it's important to develop a drought management plan. Groundwater is recharged by ponds, sloughs, beaver dams, and other wetlands, and land use planning can aid in maintaining wetlands. Development planning should have drought in mind. Communication is important in various mediums to reach everyone, and drought education is important. These are some of the themes. Emergency management needs to include drought, and municipalities can include industry in emergency fire responses during drought, and collaborate with ag societies and FCSS. And conservation can be voluntary or compliance measures may be needed. They urged collaboration with urban municipalities for consistent rules, and that was like regarding lawn watering during a drought. Promote rain barrels into the urban so that they're using less river water. And there was a lot of resource materials made available at that workshop, and I collected them all. So if anybody needs to look at those, that was some of the things I picked up from the highlight in that page. James?
Mr. Chair, if I could. So I've got this disconnect that I've been reading about that both the city of Edmonton and the city of Calgary are basically telling people they cannot collect rainwater. I was going to ask about that because of the simple fact that they're almost making it illegal to have a rain barrel in Calgary. That was the proposed bylaw, and I don't know if it went through. I'm just wondering if there's a huge connect, because what they're saying is they need the runoff to create the flow. Yeah. So I don't know. I'm just wondering if anybody else has heard that, or am I got both Edmonton and Calgary were looking at it. Have you heard anything about that? Okay, nothing about that. That was the latest. Maybe it's just a tinfoil hat thing.
Yeah, I haven't heard it either, and I did have the opportunity to sit with the city of Calgary reps and discuss water conservation as part of the Water Smart Agreement stuff.
And did they mention rain barrels?
No, I don't believe they did. They definitely mentioned the same things MacGyver did, which is, outdoor watering restrictions. They have a water restriction plan in place that they follow whenever. They just expect to get higher on the tiered list, right? Stage 1, 2, 3. So they just expect to get higher.
Hey, Larry?
Just a question on Dixon Dam being at normal levels. Would that have been before or after that Mr. Lease said that it was dry this year? Or is that typical this time of year?
Well, I understand that was typical. That's what I heard.
The Glennifer Lake, it's portion of, or is it is the exact same thing? Okay.
That's what I understand, that it's at 50% at this time of year is what it normally is.
Yeah.
54 to 63%. So it's not unusual.
Yeah.
I'm just really curious, where did Pincher Creek get the water? So they're trucking water, where did they get it?
I'm not sure where they hauled it from, but they bought it, $1 million.
Because I'm so curious about where they're picking off the water from.
River probably.
Yeah. Like, are they getting it from the river? Or are they getting it from BC? Are they going to the city of Calgary?
Because the reservoir they were trying to pump from got too low to pump.
Correct.
Yeah.
I bet you if you called their administrator, you could probably find
I
out.
should. Yeah.
I'd hold the phone out here when you ask that question.
I think I know that administrator down there.
There was, when Mr. Stuhlberg and I first sat down, there was someone emailed us out, Calgary Herald had something that their water well had gone dry and that they were doing a special drill into the river to access water, but somebody was there from Pincher Creek and said, no, that is not even close to what's going on in that picture. And it wasn't even the town of Pincher Creek. Pincher Creek gets, because he even said it, they got their water from. I can't remember now. I'd have to. I'm not sure if I wrote that down.
To haul from, but they had to haul. But any other questions on that workshop? Not, I'll ask for we receive for information. Oh, Ernie, sorry, you had a question, right?
Okay, so if Edmonton and Calgary are starting to say, okay, you can't collect water from a rain barrel, but is it going to be everyone's land? You cannot connect or collect any water on? So like how far could it go? What jurisdiction would they have?
So I just did a quick Google search. What they did was they permitted it. So you have to have a permit to collect rainwater in the city of Calgary. So you cannot just have, if you put out a rain barrel, that was the article I was reading. You can't just put out rain barrel, you have to have a permit. And I don't know if they.
See, in the city, if you put a big water trough there and the neighbor gets drowned in it or something, they might have to have a cover. I don't know.
Yeah, they're talking installing rainwater harvesting systems required to obtain the necessary permits and call all the associated inspections. So if you got a rain barrel, it's considered to be a rainwater harvesting.
It's a permit in the city. Okay, well, that's interesting. Any other comments or questions? Justin,
I'll move that we receive the reports for information.
in favor? Carried. 12.2, RMA agritourism session. I attended that breakout session at RMA, and I just thought I'd share some of the things that they were sharing there. It was the agritourism session, and Travel Alberta is promoting destination management and aim to grow marketing, increase air access, and enhance placement of destinations in Alberta. Alberta tourism was a $1.7 billion industry in 2022, and the goal is to make it a $3.1 billion industry by 2035. Part of the projected goal will involve agritourism business expansion and investment attraction. Already farmer markets are generating $924 million, and on-farm attractions generate $303 million in Alberta. There are certain funding or grant funding streams available through Travel Alberta. The Tourism Investment Program includes cooperative investment and innovation investment. And I believe the amounts are $500,000 and $200,000 over 3 business years for each program. CATA, Central Alberta Tourism Alliance, is municipality run and includes the central area of the province, Olds, Red Deer, Lacombe areas. And they coordinate self-guided tours and have selfie photo contests for promotion. A couple of large attractions are the Gasoline Alley Farmers Market, open year-round, and the Cray Family Farm corn maze. Strathcona County has its own agritourism and economic development department. One of its attractions is the Bar Estate Winery. They suggested planning departments need creative thinking to make agritourism fit. And in a separate RMA presentation regarding economic development microgrant, Foothills County, Lacombe County, Flagstaff County, and the MD of Willow Creek all access grant funding for promotional videos promoting rural life, rural economic opportunities, and many things agricultural. So I just thought I'd share that because we've got a lot of agritourism type ventures in our county, so they might be aware there's some grant funding available as well. Any questions? Okay, I guess I'd ask for a move for that one to be accepted for information. Larry, all in favor? Carried. Moving on to 13, the seminars, workshops, and conferences that are coming up.
I'll make it quick. Tonight, Shelter Belt Workshop in Rumsey, 5 till 8. Tomorrow is our Fire Smart Workshop in Erskine, starts at 5 o'clock. Not entirely sure how long it's going to go, but. And then April 15 is Shelter Belt order deadline. We did extend it 1 month as per request. April 15 is also ASB bursary application deadline. And April 18, we are presenting to the Buffalo Lake Nature Club on invasive species in the lake area.
And our media type department can remind the deadlines in social media. Okay. Justin?
One question on the Fire Smart workshop. Are either of our new fire staff going to be there? It might make for an interesting opportunity to introduce them to some people from the public.
The invitation has been sent out. I was going to touch base today and find out if they could attend. There was a conflict in one of the individuals, but I don't know. I don't know.
Fair enough. If it works out, great. If it doesn't,
Dwayne is very versed on Fire Smart. I guess he's done a lot of work in it and has all the certification. Is that what you get? Yeah. And so he said that he's willing to assist if we want. So that's great for us.
Can I get a mover for the conferences, workshops, and all that? Dave?
For information.
Dave made a motion. All in favor? And carried. In camera, the wild boar update, FOIP section 20, disclosure harmful to law enforcement. Justin?
I'll move that we go into camera.
Okay. Thank you. All in favor? Are we going to cancel that? Or we can, what's the scoop?
Future things, just leave it on for now. Just
Leave it on now?
It's April 21st.
Our next,
Well, if we need another meeting to see, but we may not. So. Okay, and Dave adjourned the meeting. All in favor? Carried.
That meeting will